So, I actually just totally fucked that up. I fucked that up. What's up, guys? We're back on the Subaru. Gonna pick up where we left off in the last video. We do have heat, so I'm very happy about that. So we have these 4 pipes. We're going to take them down to a friend's place and get them bent. We only need 2, but I'm bringing 4 just in case we mess 1 or 2 up. We can have a second shot at it. These are going to be the A-pillar bars. You can see we've already tried a few times, but the bends were flattening out, so I figured out we have to... Their tube bender doesn't have a clamp at the end to keep it from sliding, so when I take these ones down there, I'm going to rig something up like that on their bender so that it doesn't slide. And then hopefully the flattening issue will go away, because we can't have any of that or else it'll fail the NHRA cert. So these were outside, I cleaned them up, got all the rust off. They weren't bad, they just had surface rust. So I cleaned them up, wiped them down with WD-40. So that will be in this video or the next, we'll see. Over here, we have these bars. Were leftovers that we weren't going to use, and so I'm cutting those up to pick up where we left off on the rear strut bar. I think we might be able to use the notch at that end, so I'm cutting off the angle we had on this end. So once that's cut, we'll test fit it on the strut bar. So there's a couple things I want to show you as I kind of see if these bars that we already have will work for our strut bar. And then I'm gonna pack the shop up for today. Gonna go get these A-pillar bars made, hopefully successfully. If not, I might ask one of the guys that I work with that does some more bending. They're a little further away because they definitely need to be done right. For now, I'm gonna show you guys kind of what I'm doing to set these bars up for the strut bar, and some tips with prep and stuff like that. Okay, so this is our strut bar, as you guys saw in the last video. These bars were going to go from the harness bar to the trans tunnel, drive shaft tunnel, but we ended up going with a different design, and these didn't fit anyways. They weren't the right length or angle for where we needed the harness bar. I'm not sure if that's the cage kit's fault or if we're doing the cage a little different than they wanted, but I think that maybe it's because I want a nicer result than the kit would have provided. So I tweaked things and that moved other things, but I'm all right with that. It's a little more work, but I think it'll be worth it. So this is what we started with, and you can see I just changed it a little bit. We knew it had to be shorter. We took this angle off at that end, took the angle off of this one, and then you can see a difference here. So this is how I started off prepping everything. I was using this pipe polisher off of Amazon with like a 60 or an 80 grit belt, and it looks like shit. I didn't get why people were cleaning it, evenly, and I did not realize that, or I should say I didn't think, but when this cage is painted, or any cage is painted, it looks a little bit like there's flat spots on this, but there's not. So it probably wouldn't show through paint super badly, but you would probably see the texture of the low grit a little bit. I don't think you'd see where it is uneven, but I'm gonna explain to you guys how and why I switched to doing it this way. Obviously, it looks a lot nicer than that. So part of it is just taking pride in your work. Another part of it is if you just have it clean to here, the person who preps the cage for painting is gonna hate you, because they're gonna have to get down in all the joints and clean shit more. Here they can just do the straight parts and they're done. Obviously it depends on the location. There may be some things that are gonna be tight no matter what, but this helps with prep for paint, and then the finer grit won't show through the paint. Another thing I'm doing is I have this zip tie that I can slide on here and slide it back about 5 inches, and I'm doing about 5 inches on every one. You can also use a hose clamp. I switched from 60 grit to 400 grit. You can see 400 grit, and this one was already like this, so I sanded over the rough grit, so it may not look amazing, but this one, if it was cleaner, is quite a bit smoother and shinier, and it just looks nice. So this one will be getting made for this side. So you can see it'll come down like this. I have to trim some off of this end so it lines up with the center, and there's gonna be some kind of merge like this at this end with the piece that comes from this corner, and we'll get some pretty welds in here, and then it'll be welded to the strut tower on both sides. This plate will be. I want to go through with you guys when I weld this and show you something, not something that I learned recently, but something I just, as I'm getting better at other things and I don't have to focus so much on other parts, I can focus on finer details a little more. So I want to show you how to make this joint look really nice when it's finally welded. I'm gonna reference someone who you guys should definitely check out if you like this kind of stuff, and he says it's to make your part tell a story of how it was built, and I like that. I don't know a better way to describe it, but I like that, so I'm gonna explain that to you guys when I go to weld this. All right guys, so we finally got these things to bend without too much deformation. I think it was like 6% when I used the calculator on Rogue Fab, which is a lot better. Those test pieces and the first 2 tests, these were the second set that we did today, but the first set we did today was like 9-10% deformation. So out here it was 1.625. And in here, I believe it was like 1.46 or something. These ones we got up to 1.55 or something like that. And so it's pretty good. I'd like to have it better, but it is, you know, barely noticeable unless you're really looking at it, and I think it should pass tech. So, cool learning experience, because I've never used a tube bender much before, but it was pretty cool. All right guys, we're out here next day. You can see it's still dark out. It is like 5 a.m. and it's still fucking cold in here. The heater's going, so it's warming up. You will see me shed these layers throughout the day. We're gonna start here on this strut bar. Let me show you what we got going on and kind of what my plan is. All right, so as you can see, we've got this fit up pretty well, and we've got our center line here. You can see our tube is too long, which is awesome. You always want to have it too long so that you have material to work with. What I'm not exactly sure of is I want to make where this tube meets that tube and where it meets the floor of the car, I want it to make a nice, kind of like a nice intersection like this. Something that looks nice, something that has a good amount of weld on it and is strong, and you know, just something all around good. I'm trying to decide if these two can just come in together and meet at the floor, and I can make some kind of cut shape to make them come together and look right, or if I'll have to add like a straight piece coming down from the two to make it look nice. I'm not sure yet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw this bar in the car, and I'm going to measure from here to the floor, probably from the bottom of the pipe to the floor. Alright, so we got our measurement from here to the floor, and that is 9 13/16. We've got this fit up, clamped down how it's gonna be. This keeps it nice and flat so that I can get the right kind of rotation and fit on here, how it would be in the car. And then if we line up with our center line and come back, we can see that 9 13/16, it's kind of like further back away from the center than we'd want it to be. So what I noticed here is we have a slight gap right here, so instead of flattening this out to get that gap to close up, I'm actually gonna decrease this angle so that this will come in a little bit as well as close up that gap, and then maybe that'll get us a little closer to center so that we can have these two things join instead of have them hit the ground like not right at the center, because then you'd have like this one coming in and hitting the ground, and it'd be like this, and then the other one would come in and hit the ground like right here, and so it would be two angled cuts. Both pipes wouldn't be tied in together. What I'm gonna do is just take some off of here, flatten this angle out so that this can suck up a little more. So if we check our 9 13/16, you can now see it's way down here, and this is like directly in the center. So we actually came up quite a bit, and let me show you the joint. So what I did is gouged it out in here, flattened it out in here, and I did take a little more off here than I did at the peak, at the V. So there is a slight gap right there, so I'm gonna actually touch that up and just smooth that out. Yeah, I really just kind of shaved that a little bit and it worked perfect. I am still kind of getting used to the geometry of this material of tubing, like how it likes to fit up. You're not usually doing this kind of joint on exhaust, which is what I'm used to. So I'm still getting used to how this stuff behaves and what it likes to do and doesn't like to do. But I can honestly say that unless I just got lucky, if that worked in my head as I thought it would, that shows some progress with this tubing, so I like to see that. Let's touch this up and check it again. Alright guys, so I got this fit up a little bit better. I'm not going to mess with it too much because I don't want to, there comes a certain point where you're just going to mess it up and make it worse. It's not going to get any better. So we're gonna accept that. It's pretty good. What I came in here and you saw me do with the square is I squared from here down to here. And I made my line here that lines up with the center, and I'm gonna cut it like this. The reason I'm gonna do this is so that I can put the other one in and do the same cut on it. The reason that I am cutting it like this and not like this level with the floor is because if I come in here and cut it level in a nice long cut and then I want it to come up in more, that cut is going to be like this if I fold it up more, and it's going to take off material that I may need to make adjustments with. But in this case, if I cut it like this and I come up, this is all going to be in cut space, let's say. So imagine this is my imaginary cut line in line with this. That's where it's going to be cut every time. So if this comes up this way, it's going to be on this side of that imaginary line. And so I'll always have extra material, where as if I cut it here, and then you imagine there's an imaginary cut line here, then if I have to bring it up, it's on the inside of that cut line instead of being on the side, so that I could cut more off if need be. So don't cut something if you know that it's going to put a restriction on you, I guess you could say. It's going to hold you to that angle. You can't retrim it. With this, you can. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that. We'll put it back on here. Alright, so we got that thing in there. We're going to get this piece set up looking just like this one, and I will kind of time lapse through that. Alright guys, so while that's cutting, I'm going to go up ahead and clean up this end of the pipe to make it look like that end. Alright, so you can see that's nice and shiny. Nice and straight line, just like this side. And our piece is done cutting, so we'll check the fit on this. This one is a little long, which is fucking awesome. You don't want it too short. So where they're meeting is pretty much perfectly in the center. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure them both and see where we're at. See which side I want to take off of. I know this notch still needs grinding like we did on the other one. So I might do that first before trying to take any more off of here, or just cutting some off the end of here. So on this one we're at about 21.5 from the tip of these to the long end on this one. And we're about the same here, except for maybe a 1/16 of an inch extra. So I definitely don't want to cut any off. I want to flatten out and grind this. I've got them lines on here marked from this piece, but I'm not going to bring them right to there, because you bring them right to there and then it's too short and you got to redo this whole thing. And I really don't want to do that, because these copes take a bit of time, especially to get really nice. So I'm just going to do a little bit, check it, do a little bit, check it, and see how that goes. Alright, I'm going to keep going at that crotch a little bit, and I'm not sure that's what's holding us up, but I'm gonna take a little off of that until I see that's not touching and it can't be holding us up. As I do this one, I learned from that one, I'm keeping this nice and flat instead of getting a dip in here, which is really important. But you don't want a dip in there. So you can tell that's nice and flat. So our crotch up here is no longer touching, but we're interfering and not able to slide all the way up. I'll take a little off of this guy. We're going to take it off of this end because our angle here is pretty good. So we are coming in a little long, but our angle seems to be dead on square, so that's good. And we can see here we're coming in about a ½ inch long. So I'm going to take a ¼ inch off of this end. So you can see we've got a gap here. I'm going to get that to flush up with this plate. Obviously this plate isn't 90 degrees. It's bent back to meet the contour of that strut tower. So I'm going to take a ¼ inch off. Let's go ahead and go like this. So that'll be kind of our angle because we want to match the angle of this plate. So we basically, our ¼ inch is going to come by closing this gap up down here and taking a little bit off up here. Alright guys, I'm kind of going to risk it for the biscuit here and hope that this is a good angle. So I actually just totally fucked that up. I fucked that up. But, I don't know, we'll see what we can do to fix it. I just made that gap at the bottom worse. So, you can see our line is still there because my dumbass increased the angle and just cut more off of here and made it basically not any shorter up in here, which is the opposite of what we wanted. So you can see that gap's bad now. And this is too far. Alright, so I'm absolutely not going to try to weld that gap. And I'm absolutely not going to try to weld that gap. So we need to close those up, which means changing the angle of this, or the length, just the length probably. Maybe the angle of this. So that means work to both of these bars to get them right. And then we're probably going to be high, like the ground will be here and these will be here, which is fine. We'll just take a straight piece, cope it so that it fits up, and it'll come straight down to the floor and weld to the plate on the floor. I'm trying to decide where I want to start to avoid another fuck up. Because you don't just want to keep like, oh, I'll just chase it back a little bit. Oh shit, there's something else. I gotta chase it back. I gotta chase it back. And then you fucking end up with something shitty. So we're gonna be something like that. So take a good bit off. I'm gonna still come to this side of that line, because we're gonna fucking inch up on it. If I can bandsaw it and it's close but not perfect, and then I can hit it on the belt sander, I'd rather do that than hit it on the bandsaw once and it'd be wrong. So let's go ahead and cut this again. So now you can see we're fucking tits up here. Our angle is awesome. We just need to bring this one in and we'll be super nice. All right, folks, there it is. You can see that gap is fucking very nice. Pretty good over here, pretty nice up here. Obviously everything will get tacked in place and whatever. So now we're gonna want to run through prep. One thing I'm curious to know is what our measurement here is. Yeah, we will want to add a small piece just so we have a bigger footprint. Obviously this would get cut flat. That's why I would have liked the 9 and 11/16 to line up like right here, so we could cut flat and we'd have a nice big area to weld to that plate. But since it's just going to be a small little area, we're going to want to put a piece of pipe like this to weld to the plate, and then that will cope around here. So let's get this thing prepped. Alright, so we got both ends clean on that piece. So what I'm actually going to do now is take them both off. I'm going to clean the insides of the ends. Alright, now you can see we're cleaned up all inside there. Want to make sure you have no burrs. For me, that pipe polisher removes the burrs on the outside, and that tool takes them off on the inside. We're going to clean this color off, especially on this side where it goes into the weld seam, right in here. We got to take all that off, and then we'll tack it up. So I went ahead and marked where this meets this piece because we're going to want to weld around here fully on the inside. So we'll bring a weld up to like right before that line so that this will still fit on. Just going to put a little root in there, and then that'll give us, you know, full strength. I gotta get a new spray bottle for my acetone because this one, unless it'll work right now, doesn't want to work. But you'll see me dumping it on a rag to do this, but I think today I'm gonna get a new spray bottle. I recommend that, a spray bottle. That's a really nice way to do it until they break. Alright, well, my dumbass forgot to hit record, but we got our little roots in there, so we're gonna wipe this down again on both ends, wipe those two down, get it fitted up, tack it, and so on. Got it all cleaned, clamped up. We're gonna put some tacks in places that are easy to get to, in case we have to cut it apart and we want to change something. I'll probably put one like right here. Out here wouldn't be too bad, but right up against the plate in the crevice is a little more difficult. We'll put one in this crevice out here so that you can get your cutting wheel or whatever in at it. Do the same on that side. Do a tack on this side. We'll flip it over. Do the same 3 tacks on each side. Alright, so you can see it does not slide all the way in. It's too long. Goes down too far here, so we'll have to shave that. I think I'm going to do it on the belt sander and just sand a little flat spot on there. Got a little flat spot on there, and I'm going to go check if that fits real quick, and then we'll skip to doing the saddle. And so we're going to take our little piece of scrap pipe here, make a simple 90-degree coat. Alright, so we got our notch, and it's going to go something like that. I'm just going to take them over to the belt sander and shape it up a little bit. Alright, so after a few minutes, I've got it fitting up pretty nice. Make sure she's straight. So, pretty good fit up. And we'll cut it to length. Alright guys, that's cutting. And I'm down another piece of clothing. The sweatshirt came off, so you know it's real nice and warm in here. Sweating my ass off, unfortunately. I have to keep that on. Keep this beautiful hair out of my eyes. Alright guys, so that thing is just fuse tacked on there. We've got this thing in. It's nice and level. And that's pretty much right where it's gonna go. I have to take an 1/8 inch off to get that plate in, but that's easy enough. I can just set this thing on the belt sander. Alright guys, I put a few more tacks on here. One on the other side. One in the middle there. A couple more here and on the other side. Same here and on the other side. Guys, I want to say, if you're still watching, I appreciate you. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I've got some cool stuff yet to come when we weld, some cool information, and hopefully you guys can either get inspired or get informed on how to do something like this for yourself, or maybe you just like watching me do it, and that's fine too. Either way, like, comment, subscribe. We are going to talk about some key points of welding this, tacking and welding it, and then we're gonna do it. Since I can't get arc shots, I'm probably gonna make it like a time-lapse type of thing, but go over some key points before, go over the finished result at the end, then we will test fit it and you guys will be able to see what it looks like. So first things first, it's pretty clean. We want to throw some more tacks on it. So I'm gonna do like a tack every inch. So we've got a tack here, I've got a tack there, probably throw another one in here. And all these tacks that I do on this side are gonna be mirrored to the other side. Might put one in between these two, probably put one between these two, maybe another one in there. Same thing over here, one there, and same thing on the other side. And then we're gonna go back in, clean all this color off. We can try to avoid it, like see this tack is pretty silver, but this color I wanna clean off. I wanna get these plates cleaned up. It's still got Sharpie and shit on there. And so we'll go back through with a wire brush, clean all our color off, clean marker off, whatever we see that we want to clean up, we will. And I'll probably do a little welding in here to kind of close this up a little bit. At least put a tack on there, I don't know. But anyways, let's start with the points of welding that I want to get. Some people do 2 passes, some people do 1 pass. I might try a couple of joints as a double pass, get a root in, and then cover it. The main thing I want to talk about with that is something from Morgan Clark, which I mentioned earlier in the video, and that is making the part tell a story of how it was built. And I'm paraphrasing what he said, but I've never looked at it that way, but when he said it that way, I was like, that I guess makes sense. I always just thought of it as making it look nicer, but it does in some ways tell a story of how it was built. So the way he explained it, I'm going to paraphrase in my own words and my own understanding. It's not a complex subject, but I've kind of thought about it after and made my own explanation of it. So we're going to call this a primary tube. This is the primary piece of the strut bar. I say that because nothing notches, this tube doesn't notch into anything else. This is a whole tube, and things are cut to fit this tube. That makes this the primary tube. The secondary tube would be this and this, because they are notched to fit around this tube, making this secondary to this tube. What that means is we're going to weld according to that order. and actually in reverse order. This weld is kind of out of place, but it's alright. What I'm gonna do, the way that I used to think about this is just covering up your stops and starts as best you can because it looks better. This is the primary tube, this is the secondary tube, and you weld it in reverse order of that. This weld here is always going to start here and end here, or start here and end here. So since you don't want to see that stop or start in the final product, we're going to do this weld first. Then at that point, we can take our primary tube weld and cover that stop start with this weld. And we can run that back so that our stop, you won't see the starts obviously because you cover the start with your next weld, but the stop that you overlap over the start, that is the only one that can be seen, so we'll put that either in the back here or down bottom. Same with this one, we're gonna put it around back. So that's kind of, I think, what he's talking about when he says make the part tell a story. It's not just about it looks nice. You can see that there was thought that went into the order of operations. So what I'll do is I'm gonna jump around with my welds so as not to put too much heat into the part. But I'll run this guy, and then I'm thinking about running over this one to, make it look like it's all one direction and all that good stuff and not have a stop there right where it's visible. So I'll run this guy, and then I'll go over to this side and I'll run this guy, flip it over and run the back side up to here, run the back side up to there, then I'll come back over here and I'll start either on the back here or down here, and I'll run up and up here, and then, well, that might be a little much. I'll run up to here and I'll run up to here. I'm trying to think. I could run up here, or I could run up here, down here. Yeah, because so if I run up here and up here and then down here, I'll have one stop and start. If I run up here and up here and up here and up here, I'll have a start here, or a stop here and a stop here. And I would rather do it so that it's weld, 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 single stop. In the end, there's not a stop start up here that you can see. It's just down here. There's a stop. Is anyone going to be looking at this thing this close? Probably not. But like I said in the beginning, as I've gotten better at doing fit up and I don't have to focus and work so hard to get that nice, I've got a little more time that I can spend making the final touches really nice. And I hate to cover over this weld because I think this is a really nice looking weld, but hopefully we don't make that worse. Hopefully we can just carefully add to it, run over it, and still make it look about the same, just a little bit bigger on the legs. That is my concept. I'll run you guys through a second time on how we would do this one. I'm gonna run up over here and run around here, so that when I stop, the end of that weld is on the back side, and that will cover the start from here and the stop on the other side, and that bead will wrap around over and it'll look real nice. This I'm gonna have to be careful with. That's not a lot of material. It'll get hot really quick. So stuff like this, you wanna just like jump around, weld it slow, let it cool down between passes. If you don't, you will get undercut. Your bead, your puddle will be squirrely. You wanna avoid that. All right, so for some reason, it didn't record me cleaning this thing. I wire wheeled everything with a fine wire brush, acetone wiped everything. Alright, so I've decided I am going to use the double pass method to get the look that I want. I'm going to run a root on everything. Alright guys, so my phone died while I was doing the root pass, but here it is. Everything is rooted. So now I'm gonna run back over it. Alright guys, I got this thing all welded up, so I thought I'd take a look with you. There are some areas that I'm not super happy with. I did put quite a bit of heat into the part, but it is a learning curve. Of course, this is my first time, technically my first time doing chromoly. I did a couple of welds on the cage, but you know, it's different than welding a whole part, especially a smaller part. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at this. I'll show you what I like, what I don't like. Obviously the too much heat I don't like. So these crotch welds, that's what we'll call them, came out pretty nice. That's the only spot I got into the plate a little bit, cut in a little. This crotch didn't come out so great, but the collar or the saddle came out a little nicer. Not super unhappy with that. It's just a little gray, unfortunately. I'll show you the other side. Of course, the back side here, because it's the second one that I did, this one came out really nice. Just the way the crotch ties in, or the way top runs over this crotch and ties that in, is super smooth. Let's see if I can get some better light on that. There we go. This was the best weld by far. Came out super nice. Unfortunately, this is on the back, because once I got around to the back, you know, I had already done the front, so I was getting a little better at it. I don't know, I mean, I'm not super unhappy with it, but it's definitely a skill that I'm going to want to improve on. This one came out really nice. If they all looked like this, I'd be pretty happy, but my main issue, I put too much heat into it. That made the weld squirrely in some areas. Too much color. You can see here, made those welds a little squirrely. Got a little squirrely on me in here. Little squirrely here. Little bit in here. And then of course where it took a bite out of that plate. Overall, I would give this maybe a 6 out of 10. Could be a lot better. On the cage, hopefully we will be able to implement what we have learned here and make it look even better than this. So let's go and pop this thing into its resting place. Alright, so there it is, sitting in place. We gotta tack those plates on to the strut towers. Add our plate down here. Still gotta clean the paint off and do a bunch of stuff for that, but overall, fits good. Definitely fits good. And it'll help this thing out a lot. Yeah, hopefully you guys see some improvement when I do a video welding the cage. But, I mean, I guess overall, I can't be super unhappy with it. It is definitely an improvement over past work. Usually all I see is the squirrely spots, and those eat away at me a little bit, but all in all, it's definitely an improvement over past work. So let's end this video on a high note. Guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you want to follow along for the journey. Please like, subscribe, drop a comment, and I will see you guys next weekend, hopefully, when we are putting in the A-pillar bars. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.